turn your camera off if you don't want to be seen. Go for it, Randall.
All right, I'm gonna be speaking away from the mic. Will they hear me up there or is it?
Not here.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my,
Open mic. How do you do? So glad to be here. Hello, LA. Are you having a good time today? All right, we're ready to have it. We're ready to do it. This is the Santa Monica Astrology Group. We're coming back from the pandemic. We're getting ready to go and we're building up our audience here and you up there. If you can, come in here because we have really a great room and it's a lot of interesting things so you can really see your people and talk to them and actually have a human experience rather than an electronic experience. And that's what we're doing here today. We're starting off, we're building up, we keep building up. And so just stick with us. And what we do here is we learn to talk to other people that speak astrology. All right, when you speak astrology to other people, they think of two things. You're crazy, or what the hell are you doing? Those are the two real aspects. You're there talking, oh, you know, my Venus is square Uranus. I'm going crazy. And no, what does that mean, Venus? So, but everyone in this room understands it. And we have a situation where we get a feeling with each other that we really can understand and have human contact without being zoomed, and more can spill out, more emotions, more things. So that's what we're all about here at, and we have Jim running a great show. He's absolutely a master of everything. So what we're going to do here, first of all, is we're going to run around the room and we're going to have each of you say your name and we'll say hello. And then we'll say, and then you'll say, I am, no, I'm going to give you just an example. I am a Libra. So whatever your sun sign is, we want you to give it. All right. Then the next thing what you say is your moon. I have a moon in Aquarius. All right. And just a little note to everyone, my moon is very, very close to the cusp of Aquarius. And this is an exciting time for me because Mercury right now, and everyone's going to understand this, and you will too. Mercury's at 29 and a half, okay? At 29 and a half, coming into actually experiencing stuff in Gemini. It's leaving old Taurus, goodbye, you earth sign, you fixed sign. We've let you so much. Now we had retrograde there. So now the next thing you're going to give us is your rising sign. And with your rising sign, then we'll go around to another person. So let's talk over here. I know this person, but you're up.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Parvati Pramananda, and I am a Libra with my sun exactly conjunct Neptune in the 7th house. And my Venus is there too.
Oh my goodness.
And my rising sign is Pisces, 1 degree, and my moon is 9 degrees Gemini.
All right. That's great. Well, you're going to get that kick pretty soon from Mercury too. Getting into. All right. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Borka.
Hi,
I'm
Borka.
a Gemini. Hi.
Another Gemini. Great. So you're a Gemini. What's your moon?
My moon is in Scorpio, and I'm Libra rising.
Great. Now we'll go over here. We'll go over here.
Hi, I'm Cornelia.
Hi,
Cornelia.
I am a Cancer sun, Cancer rising, and a Leo moon.
All right. And what's your name?
Hi guys, I'm Ryan.
Ryan.
Pisces sun, Aquarius moon, and Capricorn rising.
All right. And you are, sir?
Jeff,
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Sun in Aries, Taurus, and Cancer rising.
Okay. Is that sun in Aries anything between 8 and 0 degrees of Aries?
553.
What?
553.
So Jupiter's really rocking with you, right?
Yeah, you know, it rules the second house, and I came into some money.
Hallelujah for you.
Not a
Yeah.
lot, not a lot, but I attributed it to that transit.
Hey, a little bit is better than nothing. You know what I mean? You know, you get yourself a soda. Oh, okay. You don't want to do that?
Got a name? No, okay, you're welcome.
All right. So
Enjoy.
anyone have an announcement they want to make? Yes.
I'll be teaching a class for Kepler starting in July. I think it's on a Tuesday. I'm not sure what the date is. But you can go to their website when I'm teaching the class on parents and children, counseling with parents about their children.
I mentioned you wrote a book, which is very interesting.
Yes, I wrote a book about, it's called Kid Wheels. It's about how you do a child's chart based on modern developmental principles. So you can key into their temperament, which is, you can talk to the parents about their temperament. So you're not stepping into any areas that are predictive. You're saying this is the way the child behaves and this is the way, these are some of the things that can help you with this child.
Okay, it's a great book. I tell you, it's very helpful.
And
And
can we have folks actually use the mic that are speaking in the cafe so we can hear them?
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Not really.
Uh,
Unless
Thank
we
you.
come up there.
What?
Unless we come up there, how are we gonna?
Now, we didn't pass this around. Hang on. How much work do we have here?
Well, I'll help you out. This is between you, everyone here. Does anyone here have anything to say, like you're having a class, or you're going someplace where will be a class, or there's a great Zoom? What, well, they can't hear me?
No, I do.
Oh, yes, that's you. Tell what you're going to do. I forgot, we haven't introduced you. What's your name?
Oh, I'm Jim.
Jim.
I'm a Virgo sun, sad moon, sad rising.
All
I
right.
live in the 12th house, like where it belongs.
Sagittarius, great in education and discovery. What's your speaking?
Yes. All right, so I'm going to be doing the Zoom lecture for the LA chapter of NCGR this Wednesday evening. I'll be talking about aspects. I'm going to go beyond the traditional. A square is 90 degrees, a sextile is 60, a conjunction is 0 with an orb, blah, blah. I'm going to be talking about applying, separating aspects, double applying, double separating, and how you can assess the strength of those aspects before and after the exact point of exactness.
And here?
No, it's just on Zoom. So I'll be doing it from the comfort of my own bedroom office. I'll be really relaxing in my bed. My wife will be in the family room watching television. But yeah, it's going to be on Zoom. It's with the LA chapter of NCGR. I will send out a copy of their announcement to everybody in case anybody wants to sign up. You don't have to be a member of NCGR to join. I mean, there's a fee and you get a break if you're a member of NCGR, but I think it's extra $5 if you're not. Yeah.
What does it stand for? What does it stand?
NCGR, National Center of Geocosmic Research. It's one of several international astrological organizations. I won't say that I belong to all of them. I just belong to most of them. I'm a joiner. What can I say? I did some carpentry work.
Let me just say,
Here you go.
this is Jim. Jim is going to talk to us about asteroids. We're going to look at asteroids from a lot of points of view. We're going to go back to when asteroids were discovered. We're going to move on through all kinds of things. And at the end, we're going to have Q&A. And one of my questions in Q&A, do you have a favorite asteroid? Is that the one you always look at? You don't know why you look at Vesta, something like that. But anyway, here's a maestro in this. He's done a great PowerPoint. We're going to all appreciate it. Here is Jim.
Yeah, thank you, Spencer. Thank you. I'll be back here again next month. Okay, here we go. Now I do need to do screen share for hang on. The sequencing of events. Zoom Where are you? Share screen. There we go. All right, here we go. We're going to be sharing screen and hopefully I get the right one. Share. Okay, so all of you folks out there in Zoom land, you're seeing the slide asteroids? Hey, okay, good. Here we go. All right, so this slideshow, it's available as a PDF to anybody who wants it. Okay, I will upload it to our Facebook page, but I'll also send it to anybody who wants it. Just drop me an email. And my email is jimmy_eddie@hotmail.com. Okay, let's get started. So, talking around, we have the announcements which we've done. I want to talk about some of the major upcoming astrological / astronomical events. Usually the reaction I get when I tell people I'm an astrologer is oh, you're an astronomer, you look at the stars. No. Well, yes and no. But yeah, they usually confuse astrology and astronomy. So, and which is natural because there isn't that much difference. The only difference between astrology and astronomy is astrologers add psychology to their aspect of things. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the asteroids, what they are, where they are. We'll go through the big four. Ceres, Juno, Pallas, Athena, and Vesta. We'll look at sample charts for each of them. And then we're going to talk about why you should use them, how you can use them, and which one should you use. And I will show you how to find them on astro.com, how you can go through and pick the asteroid of your, that you want. Pick your favorite asteroid. Astro.com has over 23,000 to choose from, so there should be something there for everybody. There's probably 1 million of them in reality, but they don't all have names yet. Okay, here's what's coming up. Tomorrow, the moon will go out of bounds south and Mercury enters Gemini. Whoop, whoop, whoop. It's still in its shadow though, folks, so don't get too excited. Then on Tuesday the 14th, we have the super full strawberry moon, 23 Sagittarius 25, for anybody who might get hit with that one. It's a super moon because the moon will be closest to the Earth at the time of the full moon. And it's called the strawberry moon because it's strawberry harvesting season. It's also sometimes called the rose moon because roses are in bloom. Oops, let's go backward. We're done yet. On the 16th, which ought to be Thursday, I should have put the 15th. The 15th is when my presentation is that evening. I think it's 7 p.m., but I'll send the notice out. The 16th, we have 6 exact major aspects. So it could be a bit of an exciting, energetic, possibly even irritating day for a lot of people because there's so much going on. Which includes the sun making a waxing trine to retrograde Saturn and a waxing square to Neptune. Waxing means growing, moving away from. It's okay. Then on the 17th, next Friday, the moon returns in bounds. On the 18th, next Saturday, Venus makes a waxing square to retrograde Saturn and a waxing sextile to Neptune. And yay, finally, Mercury leaves the shadow. So it will be past that point of the retrograde trail. On the 20th, the sun will go void of course before it makes the entrance into Cancer for the summer solstice. 21st, we have summer solstice, sun Cancer ingress, and then Venus goes void of course before she is ready to move into the next sign. On the 22nd, Venus will enter Gemini. On the 26th, the moon goes out of bounds north. On the 28th, Neptune will station retrograde, and there will be a new moon at 7 Cancer 23. So those of you with, something in Cancer around that degree, or maybe Aries, Libra, Capricorn, That will be, let's see, squaring my Libra Neptune and about a degree from my prenatal solar eclipse. Then on July 1st, the moon will return inbounds. On July 2nd, Mercury goes void of course, followed by Mars going void of course on the 3rd. Then on the 4th, we have happy birthday to the USA. On the 5th, Mars enters Taurus. Mercury enters Cancer, so the void of courses are over. And then on July 10th, it's Santa Monica Astrology Meetup, and we'll be talking about rulerships, mutual reception, things of a rulership nature. Okay? And unless, something drastic happens, we'll be right back here. Yes?
I just want to point out, everyone be thinking of where your asteroids are, because this new moon is right on my Sirius, and it's in my 12th house. And I have some thoughts about that. But the big thing is that when you see these things and you know where your asteroids are, think about it or bring it up sometime as we moving through. Fantastic.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, I got that new one right on my Venus.
Oh, all right then.
Is that good?
Sure it is.
Well, the asteroids said,
Hey, this is astrology. Everything's good, except when it isn't.
What's the degree that you
7 Cancer, 23 minutes.
Wow, the new moon is right on my node of the future. Exact.
It should be good.
Jim, did you want to advance the slides? Because
Yeah.
we still have the intro on. And you didn't put the calendar, yeah, okay. Did you want to do that?
You see the calendar?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, I was actually about to do it's almost dead, opposite my son.
Aha.
That
Okay.
doesn't seem like the best sort of.
Thank you.
Shouldn't be bad. Moon, the moon rules Cancer. So it's certainly gonna. There we go. All right, let's talk about the asteroids. Wait a minute. Oh, there we go. There we go. Oh, got ahead of myself. Asteroids, what are they? Oh, well, the first asteroid was actually discovered was Ceres. It was discovered January 1st, 1801. And at first they thought it was a planet. There's a thing called Bode's law, which has a mathematical relationship between the position of the planets moving from Mercury out. And under Bode's law, there was supposed to be a planet at around where they found Ceres. When they discovered that, realized it wasn't a planet and there was a bunch of other rocks out there in that same orbit, the early consensus was that, oh, well, that's probably something happened to that planet and it got broken up. Current consensus is probably not, that there probably wasn't a planet there to start with. It was never able to fully form because of the gravitational pull exerted by Jupiter and the sun. So, but there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million plus chunks of rock orbiting in that zone. The asteroids are basically metallic or rocky bodies orbiting the sun. Most are in what is known as the asteroid belt, situated between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. Okay, so if you can see this, I don't have a little light pointer, but you see the blue outer ring is the orbit of Jupiter. And then you've got that white cluster, thick cluster kind of in the middle. That's the asteroid belt, and those are representing all the asteroids. They're not in a tight belt, as you can see. It's kind of widespread. Some of them, you see, get pretty close to Mars's orbit, which is the next blue belt. But notice there's 2 green clusters out there on Jupiter's blue belt. They were discovered, pretty much within the last century. They realized that there are some asteroids that are orbiting that seem to be caught in Jupiter's orbit. And so, for lack of a better word, they ended up calling them Trojans. But then they discovered that there was another cluster on the other side of Jupiter, so they called them the Greeks in honor of the Greek Trojan War. Without getting too technical, they're about 60 degrees ahead of and 60 degrees behind Jupiter in its orbit. And they're there because there's points at those points, there's a gravitational equilibrium between Jupiter and the sun. So they're kind of like, it's kind of like getting in the wake of Jupiter as he's pushing forward, or getting sucked along behind in the drafting. For those of you familiar with stock car racing, drafting is, where you get right behind somebody and you let them break the wind, and you're kind of caught in that little bit of a vacuum that develops behind the car. So you can get pulled along and you don't use as much gas. And as you know, like the water getting pushed away from the front of the boat by the wake or whatever. They have since discovered that there's asteroids are all over the place, actually. There's some that orbit beyond Jupiter. There's some that orbit closer to the Earth. There's some that orbit inside the Earth. They've even discovered that the Earth has 2 Trojans. So now most of the asteroids that we're familiar with, they're going to be in the belt. Ceres, Vesta, Pallas, Juno, they're all in that belt. So using asteroids in chart analysis. Why? I mean, for heaven's sakes, do we have enough with 10 planets, the nodes, and Chiron? Well, for one thing, no, not really. The asteroids can add significant information, deeper insight to a chart if you pick the right asteroids and you understand what they mean or represent. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Using them is simple. You just place them in the chart just like you would, like your planets, and see where they fall. Obviously, if you have if there's an asteroid that's conjunct one of your planets, one of the angles, you might want to consider studying that a little bit to find out what its significance is. Consider the mythology of them. Initially, they were all named after the Greek or Roman goddesses, actually, before they went into the god pool. Now they've started to come up with other names. They've expanded beyond the mythology of Greek and Roman into other cultures. There's asteroids with common names. You may find that there's an asteroid that bears your name. In which case, put it in your chart and see where it is. It might tell you something about yourself. Well, the easiest way to do it is on astro.com. Now, unless you have SolarFire or Kepler with the extended asteroid database, in which case you might be able to find it there. But it's easy on Astro because it's free. So here we go. Okay, you're right. First up, number 1, Ceres. It's number 1 because now initially they just gave them names, but after they discovered that there were so many of them, they started numbering them, and they were numbered basically in the sequence in which they were discovered. So Ceres was the first one discovered. Ceres is the largest of the asteroids, and was recently, she got an upgrade to dwarf planet status. Reason being, she's big enough, has enough gravitational power that she's very basically circular, ball shaped, like a ball like the Earth, but not big enough to qualify as a planet, because to be a planet, basically you have to clear away all the flotsam and jetsam that is in your orbit. She's about 580 miles in diameter. So she's comparable to, now Ceres is Roman, her Greek counterpart is Demeter or Demeter, depending on your pronunciation preference. In astrology, from mythology, you get astrology. She's the goddess of agriculture. She's involved with growing cycles, not just grain and such. She is considered the significator of parental relationships. She's concerned with childcare and education. Yes.
Talk about now or some kind of lecture. I guess you call it synchronicity. Astronomers named these asteroids. They weren't astrologers.
Right.
So can you talk about the synchronicity, if that's the word, is how they get the name? Because otherwise you can't get any delineation. What makes you a little skeptical about asteroids is you can get one called Pittsburghania, which has no meaning.
Right.
You're not going to say that you like the city.
Yeah.
So could you talk about that? Because it's I'm a little skeptical about that.
Sure. Okay. Well, keep in mind that the planets are just chunks of, well, they're either chunks of rock or gas or ice. They don't have any.
We couldn't hear his question
Yes.
on the Zoom because he didn't have the mic on. It's the person in the audience. What was the question he had?
He was wondering about the naming process and the synchronicity of it, because scientists, astronomers name the bodies when they're discovered. And how does that then correlate or make them of value to astrologers? Okay, well, my first argument would be that, well, look at Pluto. Discovered by astronomers, named by a girl after Pluto the Disney dog, not Pluto the god. And yet astrologers jumped on it, finally came up with some ideas about it. What makes it significant is the synchronicity occurs because there is this energy of the universe that is naturally synchronous. Keep in mind that we are made of the same material that this table, the chair, the floor we're standing on, and the planets are made of. Same material, same stuff. Okay, we're all composed of atoms. You break us down, you get down to the atom, which is the various basic elements. And where did those elements come from? They didn't just appear out of nowhere. Okay, all the elements that make up everything in the universe came from the process of the birth, the creation, birth, life, and death of stars. Different types of stars generate or create different elements. And somehow, some way, all those pieces, those trillions of pieces came together, you know, and formed a solar system, and some got together and formed the Earth, and some got together and formed us somehow. So now, where did we come from? Well, we, of course, came from our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and so on. But, you know, we're reusing somebody else's stardust, is basically it. I guess you could, you know, Bible says, dust thou art, and dust shalt thou return. You betcha. Not just dust, but, you know, atomic particles, various elements. And ultimately, we're recycled because it cannot be destroyed. It's not destroyed. It's converted to energy, and energy can be converted into mass, but nothing is destroyed. Nothing is, from a universe standpoint, nothing goes to waste.
For those main asteroids, I find the synchronicity. It's quite amazing.
Yes.
The meaning and what it means in the chart. But you get something like there's 22,000 asteroids in the Asteroids catalog.
Yeah.
So why doesn't it work for everything? Pittsburghania has absolutely no astrological value or meaning.
To you.
No, I want to say that anything.
Um,
Are you like the city? Is anybody like Pittsburgh? If If they have it prominent in their chart,
Yeah, that's where you have to start to look at. That becomes very an individual issue, especially when you start dealing with common names that are not part of the mythology of some culture.
right?
Now, a lot of these newer asteroids that have been discovered and named are named after prominent people that were either prominent in the scientific world or engineering field or some other field, and or were involved with the discovery of the asteroid in some. They may not have been the one to discover it, but they may have had some role as an engineer that worked at the planetarium where it was discovered or something.
Are big four prominent because of their size? Is that why they're independent and not others?
Yeah, they're prominent mainly because they were the first four discovered. First four discovered.
But how about size? Is that a factor?
To some extent, it's a factor. They're larger because it made them easier to find. But there's some other large asteroids that were discovered later on. And a lot of the ones that have mythical or mythological significance are relatively small, but they still have, it is, you can call it coincidence or synchronicity or whatever other word you want to use, that Joe Bob scientist would discover this object and give it a name, and then that name suddenly takes on a life and power of its own. But then again, he says, if you've studied numerology, you understand there is power in the name. And so, it's easier to deal with the ones that have some mythological connection, such as Perseus or Vesta, Pallas, Lilith, things of that nature. But others can be a little trickier, and that's why you don't want to put all 23,000 in your chart. You're going to end up with just a black sheet of paper. So that's why you have to kind of like pick and choose. So in part, which ones you use, which one you want to use, are going to depend in part on what your question is. If you're dealing with a romance issue, then I would suggest looking for the ones that are involved with romance, Eros, Cupido, those, Tristan, Isolde, and such. Brilliant.
How would this be significant for me working with children and parents?
Yes, I think it would be. What you might want to do is, well, I have a chart that I will show you later. It's my chart with my family. I have two older brothers, I've been married twice, and I have two daughters. And I've got all of them along with my parents in there because they have named asteroids.
They didn't hear it.
Well, the question she was asking about whether or not, Cornelia was asking whether or not this would be, the use of these asteroids could help her and her work with parents and children. And one place to start would be any asteroids that relate to a parent-child relationship, asteroids that have their common names. Okay, so if you're dealing with a family and you got, Bob and Carol and two kids, Sally and Jimmy, if there are asteroids with those four names, take a look and see where they fall in your chart. Where do they fall in their charts? You had a question.
Go ahead.
Well, this is rather complex. But
Okay, we love complex.
Well, astrologer, you got to do a lot of questions.
I'm over. No.
The origins of both mythology and astrology go back. I have no idea.
Right.
And my thinking is this, and I don't know really quite how to express it, but I think the astrologers, they're noticing certain things aligning with movements and planets, and they were able to assess, like particularly Venus,
Yeah.
it stands out to me that the action of Venus potentializes time and space in such a way.
Mhm.
And these aspects, these characteristics start to, say, move weak to the planet and the interpretation of the planet. So what I'm thinking is, that the astrology came first and that the mythology grew out of that. That there was some unseen energy with all sorts of dimensions to it.
Can you pass him the mic, please?
Yeah, I'll repeat the question for you.
Thank you.
As if it's a question.
Yeah.
Well, it is a question.
Yeah.
Just to be,
Okay, so he's pondering the point of, which came first, the mythology or the astrology? And
Thank
he
you.
was making the point that it seems that maybe the astrology came first in the sense that, they noticed the movement of the sun every day, and they noticed the movement of the moon and how it would get bigger and smaller. And then they would notice, looking at the night sky, how there were certain bodies that seemed to move and others that didn't.
and things associated with things that are happening. Like
Yeah.
Venus or Mars.
And so, yeah, so they began some kind of an association with them. It kind of depends, I think, on which culture, but I'm more inclined to think that there was a mythology that started because it started with ancient primitive tribal cultures, and as they developed their own system of spirits. It was more of a spirit world for them than one of deities. And I think mythology grew out of the spirit world, and astrology, it seems probably hooked on around the same time, but it kind of depends on where you were in the ancient world.
There's one archaeological theory that poses that the cave paintings that are 20 to 60,000 years old depicting animals were the genesis of those constellations, as well as the planet and lunar and solar cycles.
Sure, that's a distinct possibility, because one of the things they would have, you had to be aware of was seasonal changes. Otherwise, you could you'd be in real trouble if winter came along and you weren't ready for it.
Exactly.
It's evolving the way I'm saying.
Yeah.
It kind of alleviates the synchronicity element that would be necessary otherwise.
Well, there's still an element of synchronicity, because in the sense that, okay, so we have the mythology of Venus, and then we see this bright planet or star, wanderer, and we associate the two. Why did we associate the two?
We have no idea about Venus or spiritual energies about Venus. It all comes from the planets. Seeing how they interact with that, we hypothesized or extrapolated.
Yeah,
that there are spiritual entities unseen to us that are in operation, and the planets station.
Yeah, we're assigning to the planet, the asteroid, the star, the mythology that came from the name.
We're not really assigning, but it's assigning itself to our knowledge. We're watching how it observes.
Yes.
It's not an easy problem.
No, it's not. And to see now the ancient Babylonians, and there's another group before them.
If you look at the Maya culture, the Indo-Aryan cultures,
Mhm.
and
Assyrians.
hierarchies, their hierarchy, in various factions. The Nordic thing and the Indian thing evolved into their own rich things, but the central thing, the Greek and the Roman stuff, that's where our earliest knowledge of astrology seems to come from. And with the 1500 BC invasion of India by the Indo-Aryans. So I think this comes from what they call the Maya culture, the Indo-Aryan culture that spread out. And I think it had deeper roots in astrology, in God's sands of time. And from understanding how these things are working and seeing how the planets seem to be associated, it seems to me that the astrology, we're trying to work with the astrology first and then assign that to what the planets were doing, seeing that it seemed to be in synchronicity with the spiritual.
Saturnus is saying the Chaldeans, and I was mentioning the Sumerians.
Yeah,
Well, it's Chaldean Sumerian astrology is what we deal with, it's astrology.
Yeah, they were the first Western tropical type astrologers, but yeah.
My theory on this question, which thank you for bringing it up, is that we've had 8,000 years or so of observation. We don't have this 8,000 years of observation with the asteroids, but for the basically visible planets, we've had civilization after civilization of the Western culture look at it and see how these concepts work with the names of the mythology. So they've been watching Venus for a long time. They have seen the cycles it goes through. And as Jim pointed out, if you see it working and taking on a certain aspect to your culture, then that's what people thought, well, gee, that acts like a love thing. And the thing is very frustrating, as you point out, is if you say that the Chaldeans, the moon was a man. I mean, let's face it, there are situations that change. Maybe he's a very affectionate man, maybe it's not. But the point of it is that it was a way as we moved on through civilization and absolutely was able to work at things. An example of this is Saturn. We were watching Aquarius being part of Saturn for a long time. And then we found out that when the age of revolution came about and Saturn and Uranus was discovered, people started to see how that related. And that's my only point. That I think this gentleman brought a really good question, because if you study other cultures, they have different kinds of ways of looking at it. And one thing I'd like to say is just like, I have certain planets that seem to function in certain ways that I know from looking at them that Venus has a certain meaning for me that is not always what Venus is supposed to mean from all the descriptions of mythology. And I'll stop using the mic so much, but that's my theory on it.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in and say we likely have 60,000 years of cave paintings, not just 8,000 of records that describe the bull, the cow, the lion, and then in sequencing the horse, outlining the constellations and hence the seasons.
Yeah, that's a distinct possibility.
Venus was a very important thing to Mesoamerican cultures, to the Mayans and the Aztecs and such. And it was like on a par, oddly enough, with the sun itself. I don't understand those things, but one thing to bear in mind is like the Mayans and the Chinese came up with their own separate astrological bodies of thought. But, and they looked at it from their different angle, but the wise men and women of those cultures saw that this was an operative energy and then they tried to work with it. But, you have to, I mean, how would you assign people? What I'm saying is the mythology grew out of the astrology as they tried to explain it and had to describe these interactions of different mythological beings. And so that's my point. I'm not really expressing it, or I've really put together a body of thought on my own part yet.
Yeah. Well, there isn't any evidence to say you're wrong.
Jim, this is Rita.
Yes, Rita.
It was hard to hear the other speaker, but I think he said that mythology grew out of astrology.
Yes.
And being a Jungian, I would like to take it slightly different. Mythology is not a series of stories. It comes from the psyche. It's something that's in archetypal, it's in our psyche. So it's not something people just make up. It's something that kind of covers all generations and all people. It might slightly vary. So I think that's another way of yes, the stars and the planets were there, but so was the psyche. So was spirit. So are they working together? Maybe.
Okay, thank you, Rita.
Another comment here.
Well, I'm just kind of wondering, maybe these people who, astrologers who are interested in the mythology, maybe you could present a class. I would like to move on to the other definitions, but, and it is very interesting, but it's kind of like,
Funny you should mention that. We are going to be doing a class on the signs.
Right.
We're going to be doing one on houses and some other things.
The theme for today is,
As asteroids. Yes. Yeah. So when we get to the signs, we're going to be looking more deeply into the mythology of the signs and the fact that they're come from constellations, but we don't do constellational astrology. Nobody does, even though some may claim they do. All right, moving right along. Here we go. Ceres. As the mother, she provides unconditional love. The daughter Persephone was abducted by Pluto and taken into the underworld. She describes the ways in which we face the issues of self-worth and self-esteem, our relationship with our parents and children. Deals with attachment, dependency, loss, separation, rejection, grief, sharing, work, and productivity, and how we meet our needs to give and receive what we need to feel unconditionally loved. Okay. So let's see, I think, yes, we have a chart coming up. Here we go. So this is the chart of world famous late 19th, early 20th century astrologer Alan Leo. And the main point to look at here is he has Ceres in Gemini in his 10th house conjunct Uranus. It's 2 degrees. And so this is where, a lot of his, would seem to be where a lot of his inspiration, the nature of his work came from. He found focus in this. And before we get to the end, I will mention that most of this material is coming out of a book by Demetra George and Douglas Block called Asteroid Goddesses, The Mythology, Psychology, and Astrology of the Re-Emerging Feminine.
Thank you for citing Demetra George.
Yeah. I've got 3 books. Yeah. So if you have this book, this is where you want to go to see what the 4 main asteroids might mean. She's got more than those 4 in there, though. So part of your research, investigation, study would be to either go through whatever books you have or go online and see what you can find out about, the asteroid Vesta or whatever asteroid you're interested in, and see what you could find out about the mythology behind the name or where the name came from if it's not mythological in nature. So number 2, the second asteroid discovered was Pallas, or the Greek Athene or Athena. She's the Greek virgin goddess of wisdom, excuse me, handcraft, and warfare. Prototypical woman in a man's world. So if that's where you're at, if that's what you're looking for, if that's the issue, you have a client who seems to symbolize this, the woman in a man's world, you might want to look to see what Pallas, where's Pallas in her chart? What kind of aspects is it making? What's it doing that might help to explain whatever the issues she's having are? Symbolizes movement toward androgyny, sexual identity imbalances. There's a fear of success, winning the battle but losing the war. And I'm sure a lot of women are more than familiar with this, where they've had a job, a career in some business world, and their success was never looked upon by their male counterparts the same as they would look upon the success of a man. So yeah, you have to work twice as hard to get half the pay. Conflict between the head and the heart, i.e. the sense of mentally knowing and same time emotionally feeling, what's right, what is the appropriate thing to do. The occult teachings derived from Medusa. Pallas wore her breastplate had the head of Medusa emblazoned on it. That's where that comes from.
It's also warn people that this is the.
Yeah, don't screw with me. Internal conflict between the masculine and feminine. Okay, so yeah, we all have masculine and feminine energy in us. Some more than others. Obviously, you got women that have predominantly feminine energy, and that's expressed outwardly. We observe it, but even within, there's still some masculine energy, and for guys, it's the same way. And so Pallas is the one that's really involved with some of that. And I think Pallas is, because of the nature of what she represents, she is probably more important now than she has been in the past because of what's going on with the LGBTQ plus communities.
Mhm.
All the controversy. Now let's look at a chart. Oh, no, here's some more astrology for her. She's patroness of artisans, values the arts, and her aspect as Hygeia, she signifies healing powers. She's Hygeia being the Greek equivalent.
Isn't there an asteroid?
Yes, there is. So here's a scenario where you've got, what you're going to find is that, the Roman is Pallas and the Greek is Hygeia, or Greek equivalent is Hygeia, but they both have asteroids named after them. So now it's like, which one do you use? Use them both. Start with both of them and go from there. As goddess of justice and protectress of the state, she rules over political activism.
Yep.
Supports excellence in the professional world.
We figured that had a child without a man.
She was born,
Or she was
fully
born without a
grown
man.
from the head of Zeus.
She didn't
Yes.
she didn't give birth.
I don't think she ever got there. She was kind of sterile, I think.
Yeah, I think she was.
As you might expect somebody born from a woman hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of, and what you'll find if you start to look into the mythology is you'll find that different sources for the Romans or Greeks have different stories about the mythology of that particular person. Where did they come from? Where did this god or goddess come from? The other thing to keep in mind that I find curiouser and curiouser is the family tree of these gods and goddesses. Yeah, who's daddy? Who's mama? Because you can do a genealogical family tree of these folks just like you would do your own. And you can see that, okay, for the example that I often talk about is Chiron, Saturn, and Uranus. Chiron is the son of Saturn. Saturn's the son of Uranus. Where does Chiron orbit? Saturn out to Uranus. Well, what a coinkadink is that? Not. There are no coincidences in the world. Everything has a purpose. There's a plan to everything. So just ask Pluto. Okay, chart. Here we go. Annie Oakley. Now, is there anybody who doesn't know who Annie Oakley is?
Mars and Capricorn.
You should please just explain, because we have a lot of people online that aren't chiming in. Just give us.
Okay, well, Annie Oakley was a famous American female figure of the latter 1800s, early 1900s. She was known as Miss Little Sure Shot. She was a marksman, and she traveled with Wild Bill West Show and others. Buffalo Bill, yes. Yeah. Okay. And she performed various trick shots and the like. So she was a very famous trick shot artist. She had a comic book. There was a TV series, Annie Oakley,
Right.
back in the old black and white 50s.
Yeah.
A few of us remember. Okay, so what do we know here? Well, she has Pallas in Aries. Now, we don't have a good birth time on her, so you can't really rely on houses. But we see that we have Mars in Capricorn, Pallas in Aries, ruled by Mars. So yeah, she was very much the woman in a man's world. It was just not something that women of the time were expected to do. Could they shoot guns? Yeah, maybe if they needed to, fend off Indians, but that became a thing of the past. Yes.
Looking at Alice and Aries, there kind of seems like there's like an internal conflict within itself. I kind of seeing
Yeah.
like, a theme kind of trying to work towards androgyny.
Mhm.
And then with Aries, that extreme of the Marsy, the man, the archetypal.
Yeah.
Like this versus that. If you want to speak to that.
Yeah, Ryan was just mentioning the internal conflict with Pallas and Aries, of her feminine versus masculine. And, that's probably going to really come out in Aries. Aries is a very masculine, forward movement, almost aggressive sign. And, here she was, a small woman in very much a man's world, and she was out shooting a lot of men. There were very few men that could outshoot her. Mind you, in a target contest. She wasn't really known for hunting. She didn't kill anybody in gunfights that I'm aware of. But yeah, so it was very much, she had to resolve within herself the balance of her feminine, the fact that she's a woman, and the masculine nature of what she was so good at. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what you need to be a good sure shot.
Jim, what was that comment? I couldn't hear the.
Cornelia was saying that Mars in Capricorn is very athletic. On athleticism.
You know what, Jim? I don't think she had to resolve that issue at all. I think the culture has to resolve the fact that she's doing anything that she wants and she's a genius sharpshooter. She doesn't have to
They
resolve
can't do that.
The culture has to do it. So it's actually on the culture.
I agree.
Yeah, they could go out and they could pay to watch her shoot and appreciate her abilities, but then they'd leave and say, well, she belongs. Pardon? I don't remember if she got married or not. I have to look it up.
I think I remember some big emotional or focus, but she never hooked up with me. That she was really in love with somebody. She never was,
Jim, what were you trying to say?
Well, the question was, did she ever get married? And like I said, I don't know if she ever did. I'd have to look.
Sentence.
But it's the significance of Pallas and Aries, and then the location of Mars, the ruling planet in Capricorn, and what Capricorn entails. So those are the things you kind of bring in with you as you start to evaluate. And Astrid, you're going to use the same tools and techniques that you would use for any other, like you were using for the planets.
Exactly.
And lots of squares.
I'm I'm not real good with this. I didn't see the place to raise my hand. Now I see it, but anyway. I had just seen a PBS special on Annie Oakley just a couple of months ago. And when she was touring with Buffalo Bill in Europe, it seemed to me at some point she quit because she was getting more attention than he was. But eventually he realized that she was the attraction. And he invited her back.
Yes.
And featured her more.
Yeah.
She was not a person who seemed to need the spotlight. She just got it. And the comment made was she never missed. Never.
She never what?
She never missed.
No.
Wow.
She never knew.
She never missed a shot. Never.
Never missed a shot. Wow. In her show she did. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So evidently, I mean, it was just something she was really good at. And but she didn't seem to have a big ego, is what I'm saying.
No.
I
No, she did not have a big ego.
No. Could I ask you a question? Is that Aries is also her ascendant?
Well, we don't know that because we don't.
Okay. Don't know the time of birth. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Let's
Just
just
sun chart.
Yeah.
that
So
moon
everything is
Venus in
where,
Cancer too. That's
the only thing that's going to move much is going to be the moon, and of course all the house cusps. But we don't know what
We don't know where the houses, where the planets are in the houses and stuff.
I hadn't noticed. Okay, so the other thing that she's got, not only do we have Mars and Capricorn, Mars is way out of bounds.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
Square palace,
yeah, she's got a lot of squares.
lots of squares, power.
The ruler of her house is opposite of Venus. So Mars and Venus opposition of the.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Can't
gotta,
hear the audience.
he's commenting that Mars, you have a Mars-Venus opposition.
Yeah,
I think I think I saw the same PBS program you did. I think she was unhappy in love, you know, it
Yeah.
didn't work out. She was really in love with someone, that didn't work out, so she was.
Right. So, yeah, so if you use a wide enough orb, you've got a Pallas making a T-square with the Mars-Venus opposition. We have another question or comment over here.
Right, well, I had read an article that Hillary Clinton had Pallas Athena conjunct her moon. I know there was some dispute about the time that she was born, but when I look at all of these characteristics, it's kind of like, she's like trying to be protectors of the state, rules political activism. And I think probably that androgynous thing too, it's like a lot of people thought that maybe she was lesbian or something too. But,
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just thought, I'm just kind of looking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is interesting because when you start to look at, she was looking at the chart for Hillary Clinton, because some were saying that she apparently has a Pallas conjunct moon, which of course will depend upon the time of birth, which we don't have a good one for.
There's really emotion involved in a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Children's issues, you know, before.
Yeah, so she does seem to, but she is very much also epitomizes the woman in a man's world, politics.
First woman around the president.
And also just projecting that she's doing something that's deemed as masculine and kind of calling her out as a butch, dyke, lesbian. She's got to be a lesbian if she shoots a gun. That describes the sexism and the patriarchal situation.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, we got to keep moving. We're gonna move along. I don't even know what time it is. We're moving along. Okay, here we go.
She's got great planetary placements.
Yeah, she does.
Good signs of the planet.
Okay. Next. Number 3, Juno, the Greek Hera. The name for the wife of Jupiter, names also the namesake for the month of June, and is protectress of the community. So why is June such a popular month for marriages? Juno. Do you know why? It's named for the goddess Juno. However, expression of the nature of femininity associated with matrons, marriage, warfare, and femininity. Can't have marriage without warfare. The divine consort. And she's also the aggrieved woman. Jupiter, yeah, she was faithful to Jupiter. Jupiter was not faithful to her. Now, he was a horn dog. No.
I hear all the feminine energy.
No, there probably weren't any gods that were, certainly there weren't, I don't know that there were any celibate gods. And there probably weren't too many that were basically horn dogs.
What about Vesta?
Ah, Vesta, she's coming up. So here's a Juno chart for you. This is Debbie Reynolds.
Huh.
Debbie has Juno in the 10th house conjunct Pluto. Wait. Let's see. Marries Eddie Fisher, love of her life. They're best friends with Elizabeth Taylor and
Todd.
Yeah.
Todd, but Mike Todd died.
Mike Todd.
unfortunately.
Yeah. And then, of course, Mike Todd gets killed in a plane crash or something. Yeah, I think it was right. And then Eddie and Debbie help comfort Elizabeth. Eddie decides to comfort her a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And then, yeah, Debbie gets dumped and Eddie marries Elizabeth. What a maroon.
Until Elizabeth meets Richard Burton.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like, okay, fun for a while. And then Debbie goes on and gets married again. And that guy, basically bankrupts her. Very well, cleans out her banking account. So she had some bad luck in relationships. Yeah. And so, there's Pluto at work. There's Juno being faithful, but at some point, girl, you need to wake up. No, too late now.
Jim?
Yes.
I had, in reading, there was a Jungian psychologist, her name is escaping me right now, but she wrote a book called Goddesses in Every Woman. And when she spoke about Hera, it's almost a Nancy Reagan type image of somebody who loves her husband almost more than her own children. That level of devotion.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily, and I think you're talking about the Pluto aspect here, having given, in conjunct with this, having given Debbie Reynolds the bad luck thing.
Yes.
But it's not always associated with that, right?
No.
That Uranus square is pretty tight, and it's in the 7th. I feel like what you were just speaking about with luck can just go either way, and you don't know where it's gonna go.
Yeah. Yeah, you got the Uranus in the 7th, Aries squaring the Juno and Pluto. Yeah.
So, I'm always a little skeptical about these asteroids, but I know a woman who's got Juno, jumped Jupiter up to her house. She was the bride of her dad. It's just, right, that's just incredible.
Yeah.
The other thing is maybe you can help because I have Juno conjunct, exactly conjunct my midheaven, and I can't figure out how the hell that applies to my life. I mean, can you spin out anybody scenarios given the
What sign?
Pisces?
Is it in the 9th or 10th?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe the 9th. But
How?
just, I don't know, I looked at whatever the characteristics are, it just seems to fit.
Well,
It should, asteroids are,
Well, not everything does.
huh?
Not everything fits a chart.
yeah, it's,
But it's conjunct and angle, it should be.
so think about your,
What about what about this animus thing that Jung talks about?
Mhm.
Did it have anything to do with your press?
consider, what is, think of your love life, your relationships.
Well, it should say I'm loyal. But I have the history of not being.
Well,
The
but
interesting thing is that group which one? The strange, but really.
What are you talking about?
Some,
Modern group?
yeah, it's that esoteric astrologer, they say Juno is promiscuous, which. seems-
are you thinking of the Magi?
Yeah. They have seem to be weird, but they've seen.
Well,
empirical evidence.
Yeah, from their chart analysis of charts leads them to believe that Juno is not the wife, but the other woman. And that Chiron actually rules marriage. And here's the thing with, the astrologers are really good when it comes to hindsight. We can look at a chart of an event and find an explanation for why that event happened. But if you were to show us that chart 2 days before the event, chances are we would miss the mark. Okay, so because there are so many aspects to each point, you can tell, you can tell when somebody is going to have their Saturn return, but you can't tell, where will they be and what's it going to be like. You can't even tell them that for sure they're going to still be alive at that point in time. All you can say is, well, if you're still alive, you'll have your Saturn return on this day. And this is basically what a Saturn return involves. This kind of stuff. You know that it's going to be some change in upheavals of all, probably. So,
I don't think it'd be wise to carry it.
yeah, but you'll also be able to tell whether it's going to be a 1-hit Saturn return or a 3-hit. Now,
Yeah,
3
wanted
hits are a
to
lot
chime
tougher.
in and can I chime in and respond to Jeannie's awesome statement about this idea of every woman? It's by Jean Shinoda
Yes,
Boland.
Jean
Boland.
Shinoda Boland, right. That's-
Goddesses in every woman. But
Yes.
also, Jeannie, that your statement that the Juno archetype and that loves the husband more than the children is a patriarchal archetype.
Yes,
as
it is. That's
as
right.
are the Greco-Roman myths. But if you
Right.
go back to Sumerian and Egyptian and pre-Greco-Roman or pre-monotheistic, and even pre-polytheistic, there are other narratives. And so
Sure.
that's
Absolutely.
her work, her writing of the author of Demetra George is first wave feminism, which still has those masculine narratives.
Yeah. Well, not to mention Jungian psychology.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've got 1 to go. 3 down, 1 to go, Henry Morgan. I've got a secret. Anybody remember that? No? Okay. Okay, number 4, Vesta, or the Greek Hestia. Name for Roman Virgin goddess of hearth, home, and sacred flame. That's why her symbol is like a fire. Her priestesses, the Vestal Virgins, guarded her temple, the sacred flame, and the many sacred objects within. Now, following the rise of Christianity, hers was one of the last non-Christian cults still active. She's the embodiment of the Phallic mother, according to in Freudian terms. Good-natured or good-mannered, she never involved herself in the quarreling of the other gods. She represents sexual freedom or sexual repression. Could go either way. Sexual discrimination to have some conscious memories of heightened spiritual intensity during sex and high standards concerning sex. So here's where you can get into sex on as a more spiritual experience. Okay. Not a, oh God, not again, negative type experience, or not a, okay, let's just have fun. Yeah, this can be very, someone who has a very spiritual outlook on sex in the terms of it is the connecting of 2 energetic souls. It's not just the physical copulation.
Tantric.
Yeah.
What should we know
And Freud was a bit obsessed with sex. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, just a minute.
All about devotions. Devotion, I thought was a key thing to Vesta.
Devotion?
Devotion.
Yes. Keep in mind, like the Vestal Virgins, they maintained the temple. They had to be virgins. They had to stay virgins. And yeah.
Just this, I think it's Demetra George who talks about this.
Mhm.
The difference
Yeah.
between prior
Yes.
the patriarchy, because under Roman times, the patriarchy, the Vestal Virgins guarded the temples. If they had sex with anybody, they got executed. But in matriarchal times, they were like sexual priestesses. They weren't what we would call promiscuous. They weren't. They did sexual rites as guardians of the temples.
Yeah.
They weren't executed. It was just a 180-degree difference.
Yeah.
Were they more like the Hetera?
Yeah, the Tantrika.
Yeah.
But then, so this refers to the Roman version of Vesta, right?
Yeah.
The Vestal Virgins.
Well, that's what they were. That's what the temple was called, and that's what the attendants were called. They were called the Vestal Virgins.
So when did this change occur?
There's about 7,000.
Well,
Long before Christianity. Just
Yeah, But the Romans, if the virgins had sex in the temples, they killed these Vestal virgins. Whereas the other way, they were celebrated for their, and we would use the word promiscuous, but it didn't exist. It didn't apply there. They just used the sexuality in a tantric way as a divine right.
Yeah.
And it flipped with the patriarch.
When did that happen?
Maybe about 7,000.
It wouldn't have been that.
Somewhere.
Yeah, it wouldn't have. No.
Greek was matriarchal. But I don't know how far down it went.
Well, there's a distinction between matriarchal and patriarchal societies, but in terms of the Vestal virgins, it would be more recent because, you know, that temple and everything came about probably in the early, 500, 600 BC or thereabouts, because that's when, you know, and I think what happened was in some cases, you see, even though they would have sex with someone because it was in the temple and it was sacred sex, they would still be considered virgins.
Right.
Or virginal.
Virgin only meant not married.
Yeah.
Didn't have that kind of.
Yeah, and they had a very different take on sex and things of that, you know, the terminology. So we have to, when you're looking at the mythology and then you start to look at the history that goes along with it, you also want to kind of keep in mind the difference time-wise, how different their society was from ours.
Right. And also this is a kind of revisionist feminism because the Romans made the Vestals a kind of sexless nun. And prior to that ownership of women, Vestals actually healed men from the trauma of war, not just with sex, but it was comfort, tenderness, kindness, gentleness. That was what was the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I'm just throwing it out because if you're talking about how that applies astrologically, what version of Vesta do you use? Because it's a 180-degree flip about sexuality between the Roman version and the more patriarchal.
So here's what, well, one way to do it is put Vesta and Hestia in the chart. Because, you know, there is an asteroid Hestia. So you put them both in the chart, see where they are. And see which one, you know, which one fits the best. Just because you got a point in your chart doesn't mean it's going to fit. Doesn't mean you'll necessarily be able to understand it, because awareness of something, our awareness of something comes when it's time to become aware of it, basically. I mean, I didn't appreciate Pluto until he crossed over, went through my 12th house and crossed my ascendant. And he pretty much beat the shit out of me. So, but yeah, I got Pluto. When Pluto went through my 12th house and crossed my ascendant.
Oh, yeah.
That's a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
It can be a life ender for some, but you know, most people won't experience that.
Well, this screen says, you know, forget these people who say you turn every lemon into a lemonade, you know, these new age interpretations. Yeah. He says when you get a Pluto transit, yeah, you got free will, free choice. Which hand are you going to sacrifice in the fire?
Yeah. There is. I'm not a free will guy. Yep.
No, he's not.
What astrology teaches,
Yeah.
What's to keep your mind on a free will guy?
Free will means the illusion of being able to make controlling your own choices. Carl Jung, the definition Carl Jung gave for free will is the ability to gladly do that which I must.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And it was with the Pluto transit that I came to that realization, because as I reflected on things and the regrets that I had in my life, I realized that don't regret them because they were supposed to happen. They had to happen, because if they hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am and who I am today. Okay, so everything that I think of was a mistake or a regret or, yeah, no, it made me who I am. Now, within the world of quantum physics, it's quite possible that there is another parallel universe where I made the other choice and it's a different life, but I'm not aware of that one. This is the one I'm in.
String theory.
Yeah.
Before the transit of your ascendant, you have one section of Pluto, where you kind of denigrated Pluto or didn't considered so central, and it became more central to your thinking?
I mean, I like my planets, I like Pluto, but I mean, I have a natal Pluto trine my moon. And when I started looking at Pluto one time, I realized I had a Pluto. I had the Pluto when the Pluto trine Pluto was coming up. I thought, holy cow, what is that supposed to mean? And so I started doing what any good researcher would do. You go on the internet, you search for Pluto trine Pluto. There wasn't anything written about it. You can find it in a book. Why? How's it going to happen? I mean, yeah, that's well, it's only like 80 some years. It basically would, on an equal keel, it would represent a Uranus return. But yeah, even the illustrious Robert Hand hadn't written anything about it. He said, well, it's like a sextile, only different. Yeah, really. Think of it like a sextile. Okay, fine. Thank you for nothing.
So you have a lot more respect for Pluto and
Yeah, and it was that, for me, it was that becoming aware of, and that, I attribute that to Pluto, because the word that Dave Rudyard uses for Pluto is not transformation, but purity. Becoming your pure self. That is the version of yourself that you're meant to be.
Because it kills away everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you resist, it's kind of like, if you resist, but it's gonna steamroll over you, and either you come out alive or you don't.
But Jim, don't you think that you don't have a choice whether to resist or not? It's all in the stars.
In part, but what we
You
do
know,
is,
I don't agree with you on that, of course.
yes, I know. I mean, we try to exercise free will by resisting, but it doesn't work.
You don't blame the choices that you made on yourself, you think it's some way predestined?
I think it was destiny. Just like every transit, every aspect in my life, from starting with when my mother was in her grandmother's womb at the end of her first trimester to the day, everything in there is period. It's established. You can pick any date and you can run a chart for that date and time and you see just what it's going to. Now, how I play out in that chart is that's the unknown. You women are power there. See that this is something that I finally realized is as I'm studying doing my research. Guys, hey, we're cool, but we don't really develop sperm until we have purity. Ladies, on the other hand, not only are they born with ovaries and all of their eggs fully formed and attached, the eggs are actually there by the end of the first trimester during the mother's pregnancy. So, yeah. So you need to look back not at just what your mother went through, but what was your grandmother going through when she was pregnant with her mother. That's how far you really need to go back.
But Jim?
Thanks to astrology, you can, yes.
Can I just clarify your opinion on there? Did I hear you say that there's something that depends on how you play your chart out? Or do you feel that's predestined as well?
There's probably more predestined in there than we want to admit. We like to think we have some control. I don't know if I were to go out and stand on the street corner waiting to cross and some idiot would, car would go out of control and crash and kill me. I don't know how much control I may or may not have over that. Was it my choice to go to the street corner at that time and stand there waiting for the car subconsciously? I don't know. It's still the unknowns, but I think we have a lot less free will, or whatever you want to call it, than we would like to think we have. Yeah.
I think if you're really aware of it.
I can't hear the person.
So what Cornelia is saying is that she thinks that we do have choice. We have
I do,
choice.
too. I do too.
I
I
know.
do too.
That's okay. I love you
I could
anyway.
have offed myself or not.
I just,
We'd love to hear the people in the audience use the microphone so we can.
Yeah.
That would be so
Uh,
wonderful. That would be
Thank
so
you.
good.
Okay.
One microphone is all.
Yeah, right now we got one microphone that's working. Hang on, let me try something.
You could do a cordless or just pass them the mic.
Can you hear this? Do you hear this one?
That's buzzing, not very clear.
Not very clear. Let me try something else.
The audio is awful in that one.
Try this one. See if they can hear you.
It'd be so much more efficient just to pass that mic. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
It's very distorted.
extremely.
We have a cordless mic, but it doesn't seem to be working as well as it should.
Yeah.
This is not working. Okay. We don't get any of that. Okay. All right. And as we move along, a little more. Oh, it's right there. But it does. The sound isn't good for it.
Oh, is it? Okay.
No, it may not be properly connected. to something. That's okay. We're fine. We're okay. Okay.
If I was going to look at a chart, why would I look at it? Yeah, why would I look at, why would I want to?
Why are you looking? What is the question on the chart? It's about centeredness, focus, commitment, occult teachings, either traditions and ancient ceremonies, practices and rituals, liberated sexuality, fear of intimacy. Yeah. So what is the person complaining? What is their? Yeah. So yeah. So the. Yeah.
I'm just saying that it's really more, I find it more applicable in synastry. Those Vesta or Juno,
Mhm.
ties between the charts,
Sure.
loyalty or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. All of. Keep in mind that any point you can use natally, you can use in synastry. Some of these characteristics, attributes, seem to fit more closely with synastry. But so yeah, keep that in mind when you're looking at synastry charts. Now look at Juno, see what the relationship is between Juno and Jupiter. Keep in mind, husband, wife.
Has anybody here found, this is where I'm more cynical about this aspect. I once looked at when people fell in love, maybe 10 cases, and only one of them had some kind of transit to Eros. So I thought that maybe, I know Eros is one of these four, but still, you would think when you fall in love, that something is hitting Eros. It only happened once. So can you give an example? Can anybody give an example where clearly there was let's say an outer planet transit or something to your asteroid or a client's asteroid where an event happened, where that was the only thing that tripped off the event? So I don't think so. I think their asteroids are minor in terms of predictive astrology.
Okay.
Well, yes, they are minor because you can assign many of these attributes to the planets. So they don't have the power of the planets because they're smaller.
They show up in horror. I throw them in the horror love charts,
Mhm.
and there they pop up. It's interesting. They're relevant. Yeah. I
Okay.
just don't see it by transit.
Yeah, and not everybody responds to transits the same as others. And you have to look at, okay, so you're looking at charts of people when they fell in love. How did they determine when they fell in love?
Well, I mean, there was other things. It was like an outer planet transit to Venus, or if it was a
Oh, no, but how did they pick that date and time? How did they determine that date and time?
Not all of them remember, but the ones that had the dates,
Okay,
that's when they said it happened. It wasn't a slow process.
okay, but what then was it that happened is my question.
Well,
Because-
I don't know. That's how they defined it. They said, I felt that it was boom. It wasn't a slow growth thing. And so I looked at those days.
More of a love at first sight kind of thing.
Yeah, and so only once was Eros prominent. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, so my point being that if the question is when did you fall in love, that's a little too I think, general in the sense of, well, what do you mean? And what do they mean when they fell in love? What was it? Was it like, oh, wow.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
you can see somebody and have an immediate attraction to them, but is that love?
Well, forget it. I mean, what they call, they're the ones who define it subjectively. That's when I opened up. I felt it was love at first sight. You would think that Eros would be prominent. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but what about the other love asteroids? Like, what about Cupido? What about some of the other love asteroids?
Isn't Eros a planetoid out like Pluto?
Huh?
Eros is in the planet.
Eris,
Eros.
Eris, that's Eris.
Oh, where is Eros?
Eros,
Asteroid belt.
Eros, Eros, yes, is in the asteroid belt.
Not yours.
Yeah, Eris, the sister of Mars.
Eros is the planetoid. That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, then, it depends on what you're looking for. And, and if it's, if you don't see that look, try something else, or it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to show up there. So yeah, is this something that you're going to want to include in all your charts? No, I wouldn't. I mean, I start with, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. We don't know how to get in. There's a massive Eris Pluto square right now
Right.
that's been running all year,
Yeah.
and you can see it in the culture.
Very,
Ah.
very.
All right. Well, this is kind of going to take, well, what the heck? What time is it? Anybody know what time it is?
1:45.
Okay, good. We got time. All right. So I'm gonna kind of,
Do we have a chart for Vesta?
yes, we do. Hang on. Here we go. Let's look at a Vesta chart. It's, here we go. This is a woman by the name of Emma Goldman. I'm sure you've all heard of her.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Love her.
Yeah. Born in, let's see, 1860 something, I guess, right? Yeah. Where is it? There, 1869. She's an anarchist, a free love advocate, a feminist. That's what she was known for. And this is like, she's born in 1869, people, not in the 19th. She's not from the 1970s, not to the 60s and 70s of free love. No. Yeah. The hippies had no corner on the market. They didn't invent it. You have Vesta in Scorpio in her first house.
In Scorpio?
In Scorpio. 16 Scorpio, first house.
Do you have an accurate timeline?
It's not real accurate. It's a double D time from the Lois Rodden database. So yeah, the time could be off. The date's good. Time could be off.
Vesta is associated with sexual repression, also sexual liberation at the same time. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay,
So one of the things that can go either way. Yeah.
Yeah, in the first house, it's Scorpio. That seems to be a really juiced alignment there.
Yeah.
We might argue that she thinks that this is a divinely inspired event that she has this year, and that this aspect of being a woman, discovering that she does this, is an aspect of her purity and commitment to a higher sense of femininity.
And the
Right.
really prominent Venus-Uranus trine to that Vesta. So that anarchist, free love, advocacy, I mean, that's right on the money. If you really want to look at something very concrete, I mean, that trine is perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, she got quite a bit going on in her chart.
Yeah.
For those of you who haven't been paying attention, what I've done with the 4 charts is, we started with series, and then the next chart, I left series in and then I added, and then the next one I added. So I didn't take the other asteroids out. So now we have all 4 asteroids in her chart.
Mhm.
But yeah, you see Juno nestled down in her 4th house between the South Node and the Moon. Ceres is over there in the 7th, conjunct Jupiter, next to Pluto. Pallas is over there in the 6th house. Making a wide square to Saturn and closer square to the Sun.
She becomes then, it's probably not with the
No, she came up, she migrated out of there. Yeah,
To the United States.
yeah, I think came to America. So yeah, but again, it's, this is just showing one chart with one way that the aspects of that asteroid manifested. It's not the end all or by all means, this is how it goes chart, because you have to look at the whole picture and you have to consider the person. What is going on in their life. You're not trying to tell them what they should be necessarily, so much as trying to explain to them who they are. Yeah.
Jim, what other asteroids do you find useful besides those big four?
Well, if I'm looking, when I'm dealing with synastry, I'll look at Eros and some of the other love/relationship type asteroids. I always use the asteroid Lilith when I'm looking at Lilith, i.e. dark moon, black moon. Well, she's one of the manifestations of Lilith. And Lilith. Yes. There's 3 different manifestations of Lilith. There's the dark moon, which can be calculated 2 different ways depending upon your ephemeris of choice. And there's the black moon, which can be calculated 3 different ways depending upon your preference. But the challenge then becomes determining, what do they all represent the same thing, or do they represent something different? And if you want to really go crazy, you can throw in the fixed star Algol, which was referred to as Lilith by the ancient Hebrews.
What about Toro? Toro?
Toro?
Toro. People I know always talk about Toro.
Well, okay, now you're starting to get into the centaurs.
Well, that's not an asteroid.
No, Chiron, there's still probably some debate whether Chiron is an asteroid or a captured comet or what it is. But basically, there are some asteroids that do orbit out in that area. Coarb, and then you've got the ones that are farther out, like Eris, Sedna, Makemake, Haumea.
Best example I ever heard of Chiron is half the people say it's where you heal, and other people I listen to be very cynical, but that's just the opposite, right? But Freud had Chiron in his 3rd house. Somebody pointed this out. He died of lip cancer, yet he invented the healing talking cure. So the Chiron is both.
Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah,
but a lot of times people, no, it's only the healer.
No. Chiron is so much more than that.
So much more.
So much more.
He wasn't known as. Keep in mind that the wounded healer concept only came about when he died.
Right.
Towards the latter part of his life, and when he died. He didn't really die. He was transmuted into a constellation. He was better known as a teacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what he was. And he was a teacher. He taught healing,
Yeah.
warfare, archery, all those, horseback riding. He taught was it Achilles and Hercules,
Right.
a lot of famous people how to do stuff. He was a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't known as so much as a physician. Yes, he was a healer, but that wasn't necessarily what he was most noted for. When you read about him mythologically, that wasn't his big thing. I think of him more as a teacher.
He was an astrologer and a musician.
Yes.
Amazing thing.
And now keep in mind, the wounding was something that happened by accident. He suffered, yes. But then, what happened was he made what you would consider the ultimate or supreme sacrifice. He gave himself up to take the place of Prometheus on the rock. And his compassion and generosity so moved the gods that instead of chaining him to the rock and have his liver eaten out every night or every day and grow back every night, they place him in the heavens as the constellation Centaurus.
He's also associated with the Barbara Cloud.
Yeah, Barbara Hand Cloud, yeah.
She meant this jump in consciousness.
Yeah, Rainbow
Because
Bridge.
she's between Jupiter and Uranus.
Yeah, Saturn of Uranus, yes. He's part of the
Timothy
Rainbow Bridge.
Leary, when he first took mushrooms in Cuernavaca, like transit, Chiron was doing something that showed that aspect of Chiron.
No.
The jumping.
Well, there you go. See, in retrospect, there you go. There's the explanation.
Hey, Jim, will you let me in on the Zoom call?
Oh, yes. You got out?
I
What do
need
you-
to drive, so I need
Oh.
to take it on my cell phone.
Okay. Oh, you're back. Are you back? Okay. All right. So there we go. There's an example of Vesta in a chart. All right. Moving along. There we go. Oops. Oh, it is next. Okay. Astro.com. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with Astro.com. It's a wonderful website, got a lot of articles, lots of information. You can go in there and you can create free charts. But I want to show you something that you may not be aware of when it comes to asteroids. Okay, so here's your opening page. You open up Astro.com, you're logged in. If you click on charts and calculations, then you click on extended chart selection. Then you get this comes up. Now, yeah, this is my account, my chart. If you don't have a chart there, then you can create your chart. But then what you want to do is you want to scroll down toward the bottom of the page. And here's where you can add other things in. Now you notice on the left, you have options of like the Pars Fortuna, Vertex, Lilith, which in this case is the mean black moon, not the asteroid Lilith or any of the others. And the various asteroids that they list there, now they have Chiron listed as an asteroid, even though he is technically not. Ceres, Pallas, Juno, Vesta, there's Eris, which is not an asteroid. Phobos, Nessus, they're considered centaurs. So you got some of the centaurs here. All right, but over in the middle, you can select from the following list. And the first one is asteroid name number list with 23,187 names. So if you click on that, it will take you here. And here you see the little alphabet keyboard. And all you have to do is click on one of the letters and it will give you a listing of in alphabetical order of all the asteroids that's named start with that. I did K. So it starts from Kedar, Kali, and so on. So all the Ks are listed there. So, and you scroll down, scroll down and pick the one you want. Now, yeah. All right, so now there's two things that you need to consider here. If you click in the box to the left, it will place that number in the upper right-hand box with the kind of yellowish background. And it will then, when you generate your chart, it will display that asteroid in the chart. Now keep in mind, you can only put in 10 at one time. 10's max. But notice that there's also, so it shows you the number of the asteroid and the name of the asteroid. So this is Krakatoa. It's the 85,047th asteroid that was named. Okay. Yeah. There's a bunch of them. Yeah. And if you click on Krakatoa, what you get is it'll take you to another wiki page that will give you some basic information on that asteroid. Okay. So you scroll down. Here we see, there it is, 85047 Krakatoa, the island of Krakatoa, Indonesia. It partly collapsed beneath the sea in 1883 during one of the largest volcanic eruptions in historic times. So there you go. There's some information about what that asteroid, what the asteroid is named after, what or who. So it gives you a little insight. And you can easily go exploring and find out more about it. So when would I use Krakatoa? Well, I would say maybe if there was some kind of an explosive event, some type of a significant event. It might even have just been, maybe you got in a big fight with your best friend, Yeah, maybe you want to take a look and see what Krakatoa was doing at that time, for one or both of you. Because, don't think in the box where it's just about, oh, an island, it was a volcano and an island blew up. No, it's basically anything of an explosive nature like that. It can be likened to that. Okay, so here's where it got fun for me. So I went in and I did a chart using the names of my family. So I have my mother, my father, my two older brothers, my two wives, my first wife and my second wife. Don't want you to think I'm a
Bigamist.
Mormon polygamist or something. And then my two children, my two daughters. Okay. So the one let's start with down there in the fourth house at 5 Aries 50, it's James. That's my namesake asteroid.
Oh.
Okay, that's nice. It's opposite my Neptune. Moving around counterclockwise, we find Linda in the 7th house. Linda was my first wife, my ex-wife.
Oh.
Okay, so yeah, typical reading of Gemini on the 7th. Oh, you can have more than one marriage. It works. Lo and behold, it works. All right. So we move to the 7th, nothing in the 8th house. Oh, here we go, 10th house. We see Susan at 19, Virgo 9. Susan's my second wife.
Oh my gosh.
Opposite my part of fortune. She's a Pisces. But my part of fortune is at 19 Pisces. And then let's see, we have Amanda at, it's like 1051 Libra. That's my older daughter. Then there's Kate at 2726 Libra, conjunct Venus, my second daughter.
Oh.
Okay, then we have Fred at 645 Sag and Gladys at 1002 Sag. Those are my parents.
Oh.
And my 12th house. Thank you very much. Why am I so fascinated by the 12th house and things 12th housey? Damn, don't tell me. It's not a coincidence.
No, my goodness.
No, farmer. He was a farmer. She worked in, she was the farmer's wife, and then she worked in town. There are no astrologers.
A lust for knowledge of some sort.
My mother was, was a Gemini. My father's an Aquarius. She was and she was a good student. Went to a small school.
Jim, will you get back on the mic? I can't.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes, all right. So talking about my mother, she was a Gemini, a good student in high school. I think she graduated valedictorian out of a class of like 9 or something. But, yeah, no. Well, that's me. Okay, because if, when I look back at the women in my life, most all of the significant women in my life are fire rising. Okay, my wife Susan is a Leo rising. Both my daughters are Leo rising. My older daughter has a granddaughter, Willow, who is a triple Sagittarius. So she's Sag rising. So yeah, and then there's, other women that have come in and out of my lives that have been either Sag or Leo risings primarily. So you start to find things that start to answer questions of why. You don't always know why, but here's, now Linda is at 24 Cancer. My prenatal solar eclipse was at 6 Cancer.
Ah.
And I have also, that there was a period when a lot of people the women coming into my life in particular had early Cancer suns.
Yeah, that works.
So, yeah, there's all these other subtle connections that start to show up, and you have to start saying, okay, maybe there is more to this than I see. So, yeah, sometimes you have to look a little deeper to find what the connection is. Now, there's something else to show. Okay, so you're familiar with the Astro Astro.com chart page, you see the chart and then it's got the grid below it. And what's nice is it will show you those asteroids that you've selected in that listing. There's, there's Amanda and Kate and Linda Susan. That was another asteroid. Imagine that, an asteroid with the names of both of my wives. What a chance it has.
Really?
How many asteroids did you say there are?
Over 1 million, but there's maybe
Ain't that hard to think.
23,000 and change in the Astro.com database.
Yeah.
Okay.
Susan and Linda, not too hard.
Yeah. So strangely enough, there wasn't. Now my brother's name was Charles, but there were some Charleses in there, but they were Charles Smith, Charles something. It had something added to the Charles part. But he's also more commonly known as Chuck. So I picked Chuck Berry. And we all know who Chuck Berry was.
Yeah.
Bada bing. Okay. Herman, Frederick, though my father's name was Fred, but there was no Fred that didn't have something else on with it. But he was named Fred because he had an older brother, Frederick, who died before he was born. And so they named him Fred rather than using Frederick.
Since your father's full name, Frederick?
Pardon?
Was not your father's full name Frederick?
No, it was Fred.
Oh, that's the full name.
Full name, Fred, no middle initial.
Oh,
Yeah. Now, my brother Charles's middle name was Frederick. And, if you want to get confused, then my middle name is Edward. I'm named after my uncle Pete. Okay, so then you see there's Herman, there's Frederick, there's Gladys, and there's James. And it shows you where they are. It gives you an indication of some of the aspects they're making. Now, I'm going to show you something else that, most people probably aren't aware of when they do Astro.com. Because you're so fixed on the chart, you forget about the other data that's available. At the top of the page, of the chart display page, you'll see that it says additional tables. Click on additional tables and you will get some additional very valuable information. What you get are the planets, the listing of all the points, their zodiacal longitude, what house they're in, but also how fast they're moving, and their declination. So let's see, what do I have here? Okay, Linda Susan was retrograde, Chuck Berry was retrograde, and James was retrograde too. Makes sense. Okay, so there you go. So you can see there's a lot of information that you can garner there. And until you do it, you won't really know. So that's why I would encourage you for an experiment. Just write down the names of your immediate family and start there. And see where they show up in your chart. Here's some references for you. Main reference we used was the asteroid goddesses, mythology, psychology, and astrology of the re-emerging feminine. But Dimitri's also written Mysteries of the Dark Moon and Mysteries in Finding Our Way Through the Dark. So now the asteroid goddesses, she includes more than just the big four. Let's see here. If I can cradle the mic and not drop it. So she talks about asteroids in general. Then we have the four big and then let's see. This is the second.
No.
Yeah. I'm working here. Okay. We have then talks about minor asteroids as octave transformers. See if I can spot. So she talks about the lovers, Psyche and Eros. So
Right.
if you're looking at a relationship, falling in love, don't just look at Eros, look at Psyche.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The problem with just looking at Eros is that makes it a very one-sided thing. So she fell in love, but he didn't. This is when she was in love, but he wasn't. So you're talking with your client where they said that, you know, you were looking for where was Eros when they fell in love? Where was Psyche? What was the response? You know, did the other person also feel this?
Oh, man, I mean, I think Eros is smitten. And if you have love at first sight, you're smitten. So that's why I picked Eros.
Okay, some others that are.
That's only, I need 50 cases. I mean, I'm not trying to.
Yeah,
make it
no, but then there's also Sappho and Amor.
Sappho.
Yeah. There are, you know, other, because there's different types of love.
No, I'm saying
Yeah.
that if you say I love at first sight,
Mhm.
that's Eros.
Yeah.
You're smitten, maybe Cupido.
Mhm.
Not the Cupido is, it's a Iranian one, not that.
No, yeah, I know. Yes, the asteroid.
So what you're saying is that Eros is like the masculine energy here inside this feminine energy?
Well, no,
Romantic love?
what I'm saying is you have to look at more than just the one. Okay, even though if you're dealing with a client and she's talking, she or he is talking about, you know, how they fell in love with this person at this point, what was going on, and you're looking at what's going on. Well, to me, what you'd want to know also though is, well, did the other person feel the same way? Are you still in the relationship? Are you here because, you know, the relationship ended and you don't understand why, because you love them so much, or maybe you just thought you did? Because there are different types of love. There's different levels of love, and it kind of depends on that immediate attraction. In part, can begin with when we see somebody who has the it factor. It being whatever it is we find attractive, be it tall, short, or thin, muscular, whatever.
But I'm not trying to be a center. I'm just saying that I think those asteroids are secondary, tertiary. For example, on Debbie Reynolds' chart, this gentleman pointed out that she had Uranus 7th house. The way, and then you were bringing it up for the asteroid Juno.
Right.
And to me, all the things you listed are troubles with me. It's primarily Uranus in the 7th house. That's what people cut out of it. So the asteroid is, it's not that it's not useful or interesting, but it's always secondary.
Well, yeah,
I don't use it.
you can easily,
I will, thanks to you. If there's an issue that's pertinent, or somebody, right, like
Yeah.
you said, the way this, to narrow in on it is relevant to what they're doing or it's happening with you.
Right, and I think you've been doing the right thing all along, and that is experimenting, checking charts, comparing charts of people with the given question involved, to get a sense of whether or not, you know, this particular asteroid seems to work or not, or how does it, if it does, how does it work? And most astrologers don't use asteroids. They don't use the big four. They might use Chiron. And here's what I don't quite understand. Why use Chiron if not Ceres? Ceres is much bigger. Ceres is much more important mythologically. Why did Chiron all of a sudden become so bloody important? What made him so important? And then, I mean, it's like we misinterpret him or we limit our interpretation of him. Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
can you contrast the difference between Eris and Psyche?
You mean Eros and Psyche?
No, Eris and Psyche.
Well, Eris.
Yeah.
Completely different.
How are they? I don't know. How are they different?
Well, Eris is the sister of Mars. She's the one that liked to go out there and roam through the battlefield and steal from the dead and celebrate. She's the mother of discord. From her.
I know lots about Eris.
And, you know, she was the kind of like the basis for the story of Sleeping Beauty.
Ah.
Okay. She was the one that wasn't invited to the party.
Right.
So she got mad.
Right.
Yeah. Psyche is, I think of Psyche as being something more of on a mental level than on a, see, I think of Eris. Eris is probably bigger. Eris is not as asteroid. It's an outer body, much longer orbit. Psyche is an asteroid, smaller. It has a more internal mental aspect to it, I think. But you have to kind of look at all of the, kind of take some time to look at the different attributes of each of them to see how they play together.
Well,
not
Eris
an
is a
asteroid,
woman that
who is
was not
Eris?
invited to the party, and she threw the golden apple, the challenge to all the other goddesses. Who is the fairest of them all?
Yes.
So it's a Snow White. And she started the Trojan War because she was not included. She created wrath for the sake of goodness.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard on the planet right now, because she's very prominent, that purposeful disruption is because right now we have so much going on and a lot of it needs to go on.
Yes, Pam Gregory talks about this exactly. Yeah.
So that's, I thought, oh, wow, that makes sense. Purposeful disruption.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Eris is not an asteroid. You said, what is it considered to be?
It's a minor planet that orbits outside of Pluto. It's a trans-Neptunian body.
Planetoid.
Yeah, planetoid. I don't know if she's big enough. I don't know if it's big enough to be considered a dwarf planet. I don't think it is a dwarf yet. Yeah. Keep in mind when you're dealing with things. Let's back to Eris. Okay, Eris is it's a good point because yes, there's the goddess Eris. Yes, she was the one who wasn't invited to the party and came anyway and offered the golden apple to whichever goddess was the fairest of them all, and Paris got to pick. And unfortunately, when you're picking between goddesses, there is no right choice because you can't pick them all. They'll all get mad at you. He picked one and the other one said, okay, I'm going to show you, and made him fall in love with Helen. Thus started the Trojan War. But it's also also the basis, if you think about it, the basis for the story of Sleeping Beauty. So everything connects. There's nothing original in Sleeping Beauty.
And does Eris turn into Maleficent?
Yeah.
Does she really?
Mhm.
Oh, wow. I was kidding. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So Eris enters the party of our lives as soon as we do not invite the trickster.
Yeah. You have, I listed a couple of websites that you can check. I guess I could have put more in there, but there's so many out there. And some of the other books that I have on asteroids.
She moves very slowly, right? So it takes a while for her to move around.
I think he did, yeah.
And so prominent right now. Is there any other time in history, if she was even recognized that she was
It's
that?
a 583-year cycle.
Wow, that's right. I figured it was. Ooh, so what was going on? Wow.
Unless you have her, is the ultimate asteroid book live up to its title?
I think the four major ones probably do the best job. The others, they all do to some extent, but the thing is, we have to realize that just as the planets are not one-dimensional, that the asteroids as well, because those representing gods and goddesses, they're not one-dimensional. There's a whole mythological history behind them, a history that is, varies between different cultures, or even within the Greek lineage, you can find different stories for Chiron or Hercules and the like. So, yeah, so there's a lot of variety out there to pick from, if you would. And that can make it challenging because there's so darn many of them that, it's like, oh, crap, I'm having enough trouble with the 10 planets and the nodes. Thank you. I'll just leave the rest alone.
And then, as I think somebody else here mentioned, Katrina maybe, it depends on whose version of the story you're looking at. So now you have to choose the version of the story that you.
Right. Yeah. Whose version of the truth do you want?
Yes. Do you want the patriarchal version? Do you want the
or were Maleficent's wings really stolen from her? I loved that in the movie. I thought.
Yes. And Medusa's hair was not snakes, it was dreadlocks.
There you go.
And at the Cancer new moon, June 28th, 29th, Eris is totally married to Mars in Aries.
So you have to kiss the hag.
Yeah. As a little bit of a preview, I guess, of my Wednesday talk on aspects. When you're looking at aspects, I strongly recommend that you look at what the speed of the 2 points involved that are making the aspect. And to keep in mind, how long will it take that aspect to actually reach exactness? If you give Pluto a 3-degree orb, you're looking at a year or more before that aspect materializes, becomes perfected. I mean, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying keep in mind that some of your timeframes are going to have to adjust. It's like looking at secondary progressions. Things move very slowly, and some of these bodies move very slowly. So you have to allow for that when you're thinking in terms of, well, when will it manifest? And you also have to consider whether it will.
How far
Yeah, that's
away?
a great concept in relation to Eris's recent square, approaching square to Pluto right now.
Right.
It was in my 12th house.
I don't know, but how far away from the ascendant?
Oh, from the ascendant?
Because you said it knocked the hell out of you, right?
Yeah, it was probably 4 or 5 degrees. Yeah.
You said.
Yeah, when I look at it, realize it in retrospect, yeah.
Because the reason I asked is I got this, especially for events, maybe not. I never get affected to the right there. Like I had solar arc Pluto square my ascendant, and I almost died. I was serious for 40 days. That sucker didn't cause that event till it was.
Yeah.
You felt something, but did it?
Oh, yeah, when
The intensity as it got closer?
yes, it became more intense. Okay, yeah, it became more intense as it got closer to the ascendant, got closer, because keep in mind, my ascendant's 17, my moon's 13 Sag. I was feeling it as it was coming up to my moon.
Yeah, that's.
Okay. Yeah, if you look at the other stuff that's in my 12th house, I got my south node at 6, almost 17. I've got,
Maybe in your dreams, I could see it affecting it 5 degrees away.
Yeah.
Oh.
okay. Yeah. I want to touch on the last slide, and then we will get out of the slides and we can just all say hi to everybody. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate your joining us, participation. Here's a list of the tentative topics that are coming up. So if you have some burning idea that you would prefer we talk about than one of these, let Spencer or I know, and we will make
You can
some
only
adjustments.
hear the person talking in the background.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We've degenerated. What can I tell you? Okay, so I'm gonna
Hit 'em with
remember
the-
this slideshow will be available probably within a couple of days as a download. If you want it, just email me and I'll get it to you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Okay, here we go. We're done. All right, wait for it.
Solar arc, Pluto square your
I see you on my screen. I don't see you on the big screen. I'm on.
I was born, Pluto was a CEO, my.
Yeah, those men have been talking and
The men have been talking. It's so rude. I'm
yeah,
leaving.
it is.
We're having fun.
It's kind of like
Yeah, we've
what
lost.
time is it? Oh, it's not quite. It's 2:20 and we've kind of wrapped. So I'm here. So
No, no. Thank you,
Have a
Jim.
good
Thank you,
month,
Rita.
everyone.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes.
Yeah, it was great to be
Jim,
here.
have a good month, everyone. Take
You too.
care.
Take care, Rita.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Jeannie.
I
Thank
think,
you.
Jim, are you there? Are you still there, Jim?
you will. I'm still here. I'm
Yeah.
letting you go. If you want-
I'm one of those people who's still masking when I'm inside.
Yeah. I do
So
too.
Yeah, so I thought, hey,
That's
it's
what I'm
better
asking.
for me to attend online and
I'm
that
not,
way.
yeah, I'm not that close to anybody. And unfortunately, there's 2 new variants and then monkeypox now in the mix.
Oh, yeah, the monkeypox is coming, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, you're still.
Are you leaving, Carolyn?
Yeah, I think so.
I thought it might be kind of fun to be online because you can see people's faces without a mask on, you know.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it was sort of, it is kind of fun. It's better than not being at the meeting at all.
I remember when I used to meet all of them at the Unurban, and that was cool.
Oh, I know, I love it.
It's
But
actually better. I mean, it's kind of better. I kind of like it this way, actually.
It's fun this way, but it is fun to be there.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. I think in the next couple of times.
All right. I can't hear either. So, yes, okay, so,
So here we were. And that's how I rectified my chart.
yes.
That solar Uranus.
Jim, who are you talking to?
So I know my.
Yeah, that's-
Solar Uranus.
He has a loud voice.
Bye.
Okay, bye for now. If you've got a question, email me and I will get back to you. Nice to see you, Janine.
Yeah, it's great to see you, hear you and everything, Jim.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're part of the world.
Take care.
All right, you too. Take care. Bye-bye.
I never see it. Maybe you get a residual.
Latrina, do you have a question? Okay, bye-bye. Sarah, okay, you're still there. You have a question? iPhone game? You have a question? Okay, I'm gonna close down now. Thank you all for coming. We'll look forward to seeing you next month. Stopping the recording.